in part, so because I get a lot of inbound.
This meeting is being
I get a lot of
recorded.
inbound of folks trying to connect with me, and I know that Phil has kind of encouraged this as part of the process, and I also know that it's challenging for folks, job seekers, to connect with recruiters, and so I thought I might do this in sort of the aggregate and try to share what I know about recruiting with folks like yourself as part of the job search. So anyway, that's some of the background. I threw this together again literally a few days ago uh, 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 because of what I said in terms of being prompted by a lot of outreach. And my plan is to do this on a weekly basis, half hour, maybe 45 minutes a week. Again, part of my interest in doing this is obviously to help. I want to help and sort of share some of what I know, my insights into the sort of the black box that is recruiting for many job seekers, because I think a little bit of knowledge can go a long way, and it can help you as a job seeker avoid pitfalls and whatnot. And so I'm happy to share that. And that's sort of the altruistic side. Maybe the less altruistic side on my part is I want to keep my finger on the pulse of job seekers. I've ramped down as a moderator from my JSCs, and I've been doing that now for the past 9 months. I've been helping moderating two JSCs. Over the past month, I've sort of ramped down. Anyway, where I'm going with my career is I am deeply immersed in AI right now, and I'm using my domain knowledge and my product knowledge and some of my development knowledge to create solutions that are AI LLM enabled to solve some problems in recruiting and sort of connecting talent and opportunity. So that said, the more selfish part of me wants to keep in touch with job seekers so I can understand one of my primary users. So anyway, that's me. The floor is yours, you guys. I don't claim to know everything. Where I don't know, I'll tell you. Where I do know, I'll try to share my my experience with you, because again, I think a little bit of knowledge can go a long way in terms of navigating the job search. So happy to field any questions. I think this could be interactive. We have a small enough group here. So, hey, Dylan.
Hey, actually, I think Jonathan had his hand up virtually, but
Oh, yeah.
You should go ahead.
I'd like.
You can go ahead, Dylan. I'll ask later.
Okay, awesome. So I guess I just had sort of a contextual question. I mean, Eric, you said that like the market has been kind of tough. I'm getting the sense like when I was last looking for a job 3 years ago, I actually got replies from companies when I made applications. This time
Yeah.
around, I'm not super deep into it yet, and I'm just at the start of the JSC that I got paired with a couple weeks ago, and I'm moderating, in fact. But all the
Cool.
applications that I've done so far, I've gotten 0 responses this time around. The only times I've been responded to at all has been when it was referred by a specific person that I knew.
Yeah.
Twice. And so it's just like it feels different. So I don't know if that's a symptom of the tech industry where I am, of the level of my job, or of just the fact that there's like I don't know what's going on, but it's clear
Yeah.
that maybe AI filtering of things in my resume and my cover letters are not optimized for that. I don't know what the story is, but there's definitely it feels different than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Dylan, how far along are you in your search?
Well,
Just time-wise.
so I've been doing a search for like a month and a half,
Okay.
and then just started with the Never Search Alone process, so I'm kind of putting it on pause right now. I'm actually in interviews with one company, but I don't know where it's going to go. It's very early stage.
Okay.
So I'm just putting everything on pause until I kind of get the 2-pager and the listening tour together and kind of revamp everything.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So you're relatively early in the search, and just your question. It's tough out there, particularly in tech. There's an abundance of great talent, so a lot of folks are competing. What's happening on the other side is a lot of recruiters, a lot of companies are getting inundated, and you guys are probably seeing this. In fact, if you apply to LinkedIn, I think as recently as maybe a few weeks ago, you could see how many applicants a job posting was getting on LinkedIn, and the number was it's quite demoralizing, right? You put in your resume or whatever, easy apply, and then you see like within the job postings already been out there for maybe a few hours, maybe a few days. but there's hundreds of applicants already. LinkedIn actually did away with that as far as I could tell. So now they're not giving you the hard number. They're just saying more than 100 applicants. In some cases, months ago, I've seen like some of these job postings have like hundreds of applicants. So when you think about what's happening on the other side, you have these recruiters, whether they're internal or external, and they're getting inundated. They probably have multiple job requisitions that they're searching on, and they're just getting hammered with inbound. And what's happening is that this whole paradigm is broken. And this is where I'm trying to, in sort of another thread, I'm trying to solve some of these problems. But the paradigm is broken. And what's happening on the candidate side, as you guys are seeing, you're applying to a lot of these jobs, and you're seeing that, one is it becomes sort of this volume shotgun mentality, right? And so now you have these AI enabled companies that are springing up for $80. They'll promise that they'll apply to 150 jobs in a day for you, right? For $80 a month. It's all right, not a bad deal, right? So it's a shotgun approach. So then on the other side, a huge proportion of the inbound for these job requisitions, they're spam, right? They're not even, you have, people that, are just out of college resumes, those kinds of resumes being applied to a VP of product development. Like, it's just not the right fit, right? And so it becomes sort of this arms race now. And I just want to clarify one sort of misconception out there. Again, this is anecdotal. One misconception out there is that a lot of people's resumes are getting screened out prematurely because of AI. I don't believe that's true. In fact, I'm going on sort of this, not a road show, but I'm going on this research path, and I'm talking to a lot of ATSs, a lot of large ATSs, and I've been doing some, in part for our recruiting business, but also in part for just our own sort of product development research. A lot of these companies are not integrating AI in a meaningful way into their platforms. And so when you think that your resume is going into a resume stack and AI is screening you out, that in my observations, in my experience, that's largely not true. But regardless, right? Regardless, your resume is not getting looked at, probably most in part because of just the sheer volume that's going on, right? And so, so a lot of that is what's happening. At some point, so the whole idea of using AI to evaluate, a resume stack of 500 resumes, I haven't seen that being done yet, at least with the large ATS systems. Some of the more obscure ones might be doing that, but yeah. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit, Dylan. Was there a question there that I missed? I want to make sure that I'm addressing what you were asking.
No, basically, I was just looking for a read on what you were seeing in the market and why this might be.
Yeah.
And you basically answered my question.
Okay.
So thank you very much for that.
Okay. Awesome. Jonathan,
Did you say you were a recruiter? Were you like a recruiter with a corporate recruiter working for a large company or independent?
I was an independent, is still an independent, run a boutique consulting and search firm. Most of our clients are venture backed, so early stage to growth stage startups, the equivalent of Series A, Series B. And that's been most of my experience over the past 10 years.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for donating your valuable time. I appreciate it. So whereas Dylan was getting no response, I got some negative responses from, like, they actually wrote back and said no. And I'm like, that's very nice of you. From jobs that I thought I was very, very well qualified for. And there's a couple of things that I suspect might be influencing that. So I've been in the same job for the last 8 years, which is a long time in software. I've been a team lead and engineering manager for most of that time, all at the same company. And so I'm back on the job market for the first time in a long time, and things are different. And so one thing I can think of is age is working against me, right? I'm in mid-40s now, and my resume goes back to 2004. So anybody who looks at it knows that I've been here a while. Another thing is that my most recent job has been in management, but I'm applying to some more individual contributor roles, and maybe the management experience is working against me. And then the third thing is maybe my buzzwords are just not exactly ATS optimized, or the correct buzzwords. How would you weight those factors? Which of those do you think I should worry about or not worry about?
Yeah, so there's three pieces to that, right? One is sort of the length of your work history or resume as being presented. Two is sort of management versus individual contributor, and three is the buzzwords. So I guess I'll just try to address that in sort of sequence here. So as far as the length of your resume, again, I'll give you my perspective. For the most part, I don't look past 10 or 15 years, right? Because that's really the most relevant. And so I don't have an issue when people truncate their resume, right? And or even truncating their LinkedIn profile is fine. Like I don't look down on that. I don't hold that against anybody, right? I think when you start adding, experience beyond 15 years in your resume, it should be for a reason, right? Because anything that's not adding is detracting, right? So just more of something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's better, right? Unless there's something in your past experience that you're trying to correlate with the job that you're applying to. So that's just the quick 1-2 on that. In terms of management versus individual contributor, so depending on what you're looking for, right, you probably want to emphasize that more or less in your resume. And to the extent that you can be focused, I guess this goes to the whole, candidate market fit and all the work that you do leading up to that, is trying to be focused. Because if you go into an interview or you go into a conversation saying, oh, I can be a manager, I can be an contributor, it kind of dilutes your message and your brand. So I try to be focused on that. But so ideally, if you're applying for a management position and you think that's where your career is at and sort of your compensation requirements are sort of at that level, then I would try to play that up more on your resume, right? But again, one of the things that recruiters look for is that they're trying to get a dial on how focused the person is. And everything Phil talks about sort of dialing in your candidate market fit is spot on. When I talk to a person, whether it's at a networking event or whatever, and I feel like they're too unfocused. In other words, they can do anything. For me, it's hard for me, as even somebody that wants to help them, it's hard for me to help them, right? So all the literature that Phil has on that, I think it's pretty spot on. And then with respect to what was the last piece, as far as the buzzwords, for folks that have joined, like your resume is going into an ATS, that's almost for certain, right? And the way that recruiters internally use an ATS system is, they'll post a job description or they'll do a job posting through various channels. They'll get inbound, so that inbound will end up in their ATS system. And what they'll do is they'll start looking through a stack of resumes. And what happens is they have, let's just use a number, like maybe they have a stack of 500 resumes. The thought process, the way they triage that is they want to take it from 500 to 50. And so that first pass, right, is very, how do you say, they'll look for any excuse to knock you out because they just want to cull it down. So if there's typos, okay, we'll exclude that, they'll look for any excuse to get down. So once they have it down to something that's more reasonable, then they'll start looking through it in a more meaningful way. The other thing too is, with respect to buzzwords, if you exist in a database, maybe they passed on you for that position, you'll exist in that database, in that ATS. And so sometimes what recruiters will do is they'll query that database to see, okay, I have a new requisition open for a senior Java engineer position. I'll look for the keyword Java, for example, or senior Java in my database, and we'll see who comes up. And more often than not, if you have the right work experience, you'll come up. So long story short, I wouldn't recommend spending too much time in keyword optimization on your resume, because I don't believe that that's going to knock you out. I would spend more time tailoring your resume, working on your candidate market fit, getting that tight and dialed, and then sort of promoting and sort of furthering your employer or your personal brand around that messaging. Hopefully that makes sense, Jonathan, for what it's worth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I especially like the way you said, if it's not adding, then it's detracting. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, definitely. You don't need to get to a one-page resume. You definitely don't need to do that. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi, Dee.
Hey, so would I be able to tell you my candidate market fit and like send you my LinkedIn and maybe you could take a quick glance and tell me that? I'm not sure if that's the type of question that would work for this or not.
Sure. Yeah, I think you joined late here. I won't entirely repeat myself, but I'm going to be doing office hours on a weekly basis. What's prompted this is that I get a lot of inbound of people, particularly from the NSA, asking me if I could spend time with them on their candidate market fit and sort of validating, providing feedback. It's been a slippery slope for me. I really want to help, but to do this at an extensive length, it's been tough. Send it to me. I could take a quick glance at it and try to provide you some quick feedback. But what I'm trying to do here is answer questions that are maybe a little bit more applicable to more folks, if that's helpful. But send it to me, sort of DM or email it to me, and I could take a look and provide you some feedback. Does that work?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And I have some
Sure.
other questions I can ask that
Yeah,
are more broader.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, let me just pull up the question. So I guess when you're thinking about multiple positions that you're looking at, mine are still within the like product marketing, brand, communications, or strategy. So,
Okay.
how do you consider optimizing your LinkedIn for that? Like I'm finding like it doesn't make sense for like each thing I'm applying to like change my LinkedIn every time.
No.
But I
definitely would
do
recommend
have
that.
all of those. I do have all of those experiences listed already too at different points.
Yeah.
And they're not that different. So I'm just curious how you
Yeah,
think
and maybe
about that.
Yeah, no, fair question. I can give you a bit of context that's a bit broader. So
Okay.
the way recruiters use LinkedIn, when they're sourcing for talent, a lot of recruiters will use LinkedIn as sort of their database to go and find and source candidates, right? And so when they're looking at a LinkedIn if they're starting from a place of sourcing, then they want to be able to find folks. They're doing Boolean searches to find candidates that would fit the position that they're looking for. Managing inbound is a different story, right? So inbound is people that are applying, and those people that are applying are active. They call it active candidates, right? And so if you're an active candidate and you're applying to a position, and a recruiter finds your application or your resume, more often than not, what will happen is they'll look at your resume, and if there's anything interesting on there that piques their interest, more often than not, they'll go to your LinkedIn profile, right? And so your resume should be something that's much more focused to the job that you're applying to, whereas your LinkedIn profile is more general, right? So I definitely wouldn't spend time trying to tailor your LinkedIn profile to each job that you're applying to. That would be so much work, right? And again, assuming that you're active and that you're applying to multiple positions, that would be way too much work, and I wouldn't spend cycles there. I would spend more cycles tailoring your resume to the specific job that you're applying to. And don't waste any time doing cover letters. Nobody's doing them. Nobody looks at them because recruiters are trained right now, or they're conditioned, not trained so much. They're conditioned that cover letters are so generic that they don't even bother looking at them. Okay?
Thank you for that, Eric.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I've been
Yeah.
wasting a lot of my time then.
That's
Writing cover
interesting.
letters is like the most time-consuming part of my application.
They are very time consuming, and you start using ChatGPT to make it shorter. I tell you what, like, again, take it for what it's worth. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm not the end all be all, but this is just from my experience. Recruiters they're conditioned not to look at cover letters. Okay. So, and then nowadays people are using ChatGPT to write their cover letters. And if you're not using ChatGPT or any of these LLMs in a sophisticated way, it's not gonna be in your voice. It's gonna come across as overwordy. I wouldn't spend time on the cover letters. There's other places that you can spend time.
That's a huge relief. I'll admit I've been using ChatGPT and Claude to help me write cover letters. I do rewrite them so they're into my voice, but I can write them much faster. But my philosophy has been robots are probably reading it. I might as well use a robot to write it. But if nobody's reading it, then to hell with it. I'm not going to do them anymore.
There's other ways that you can spend your time. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. One quick follow up on the LinkedIn recruiter, like so I can try to manage and incur more or get more inbounds from recruiters. Would you say that just means making sure typical keywords are on your LinkedIn from the types of positions that you're looking for, and that's pretty much all you need to do?
You know, I think if you're doing your LinkedIn profile in a thoughtful way, you'll hit on most of the keywords. And not to say you shouldn't spend any time thinking about keywords. You should spend some time, right? But I would spend too much time on it. You know, this whole job search thing, it's a part of it is a time optimization thing, right? There's so many different ways you can spend your time. I think Phil does a nice job in terms of its playbook for doing the job search, right? And then the JSCs are awesome in terms of like sort of managing that roller coaster of emotions because like Dylan, for example, you're only a month into this. I've worked with folks that are like 12 months into this search, and it can be so demoralizing. So I would highly encourage you to, continue with the JSC and really, solicit support from this community. It's a great community. But again, this is a time management thing. And I wouldn't spend too much time on keywords. Definitely, share your LinkedIn profile with your JSC teammates, share your resume with them, and do an audit and see if, that you have the right keywords in there, but I wouldn't spend too much time on it. Is that helpful, B?
Yeah, super helpful. And then one last quick thing is for cover letters, if you're saying that they'll take any excuse to screen you out, do you not think that like not putting one is another excuse to screen someone out?
If they explicitly ask for one, you should probably put one in. Right?
Gotcha.
Follow the instructions. Yeah, follow the instructions. Some people think that, if they're not asking, if they say don't do a cover letter, and I do a cover letter, it's going to make me stand out because my opinion is follow the instructions, right? That could more often than not, that would go the other way, where if they're saying don't submit a cover letter and you do submit a cover letter thinking that you're going to stand out, more often than not, you're going to stand out in a negative way. It's like, this person can't follow instructions, right? So I would just follow the instructions.
Hey, Eric.
Hi, Matt.
When you talk about time optimization, given that like the cold application route is you versus 500 candidates getting screened down to 50 and then maybe to 10 and then maybe in a call with a recruiter or an interview, how much of our time should be spent like pushing on our network versus just going the application route?
Yeah, I think so. Just to give a bit of context here, I would say maybe 2 years ago, the talent market, particularly in tech, was 180, right? Candidates, especially candidates that had really solid experience, they were calling the shots. They had all the leverage. Now it's flipped, right? And so to answer your question, most candidates nowadays don't have the leverage. It's usually the companies that have the leverage. And so going through the front door can be, not to say you shouldn't do it, I think you should, but you should probably allocate maybe a more significant amount of time in networking. Tapping your network, getting that candidate market fit statement tight so that people will remember what you stand for and what you're looking for. If they can remember what you stand for and what you're looking for, then they can be much more effective in terms of helping you, right? As far as like passing a lead or saying to their colleagues, hey, I know a great person, you should talk to Matt or whatnot. If I had to break it down into like a you know, I don't know, maybe a third of your time applying and 2/3 sort of networking. I don't know if there's a hard fast formula or proportion of time, I would say. But I would spend more time networking. And when I say networking, I say managing your employer brand, managing your personal brand, furthering your personal brand, engaging with others strategically online and offline, right? So one of the things I always say is like, so a common thing that folks do when they're networking online is they're just trying to find a recruiter or they're trying to find a hiring manager and they're just cold reaching out to them. The thing that you don't see is that a lot of those folks get cold outreach. And when I say cold, like there's no introduction from a mutual connection. There's really just no engagement. It's just sort of like, hey, Steve, I'm looking for a job, or, you know, I want to learn more about what you do. And a lot of those times, a lot of those outreach typically fall flat. And so you got to warm it up beforehand. And one way to do that is to engage with people that you want to connect with sort of indirectly, whether it's engage with their content online, like LinkedIn posts or whatever, and maybe liking their posts or whatnot, assuming that they do post, providing some sort of value, either through engaging in the comments, or things like that. And then when you reach out to them, you know what, maybe they've seen your name a few times already. They'd be more receptive to, look at your message, your outreach, and then maybe respond to it. So definitely, I would spend a lot more time on the networking side.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, one thing too, just another comment. I think, you know, when you see those numbers of 200 applicants are ready for this job, it's a thing was only posted an hour ago. It might be comforting to know that I would say probably a disproportionate amount of those folks that you're competing with, they have no business being in the pipeline because they were just spammed. They were just spammed, or, you know, yeah. So they have no business being in the pipeline. So you're not directly competing. That number's inflated, the number that you might be competing with. So for what that's worth. Any last questions?
Thank you, Eric. This has been great. Your comments have been very helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. I think what I'll do is, again, I threw this together sort of last minute. I will probably promote this through LinkedIn, just to kind of get a little bit more folks, so I can help more folks, you know. But yeah, and what I'll do too is just create like a shared document where folks can just jot questions down, because that can help stimulate other questions. And then what I'll do is with these recordings is I'll probably just start posting them somewhere. Yeah, I have to think about that a little bit. I do have a podcast that I'm doing, so I might just post it through those platforms or through those channels, but I'll have to figure it out. So anyway, I'll promote this again through the JSC, so look out for that. And yeah, happy to help you guys. I know it's tough out there, so I'm trying to do my part to help. So
Thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate it.
all right, thank you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.